All right, my friends, we're getting set up right now. The players are seated, and we are going to get into the action in just a moment. Let's take a look at the decks that each player brought here, as we're going to get a good look at this kind of this newer meta. It's been a while since we saw the change, of course, at the end of last Gwent Open, and now we're here at Gwent Open. There's been a couple of tournaments. There's been Red Dragon. There's been the Wild Hunt Philadelphia, but now we are back at the premier event here at Gwent Open. So these deck choices from these players, very, very interesting, and I love that we're seeing full test. And it's interesting, we're seeing no consume from PRONEO, who's known for playing it, and you know, Calvin and Croc looking like they're going to be mainstays in this tournament. Yeah, that is definitely impressive, as PRONEO is the player who managed to obtain the highest monster faction MMR, and it was with Arrakis Queen consume, with a variant he popularized himself, which utilized Frightener and Weave's Incantation as an early game tutor to search for Maileron and to you know, chain into Necro for 14 points opening. And that sort of approach towards consume really enabled him to get the upper hand over everybody else, and he had quite the big gap when it came to his monster MMR, but he's not running monsters this time around. He's opted to bring Northern Realms, a faction that many top players predicted would not really be present in this tournament, but we already see the #1 most feared player in this tournament is running Kin Foltest, and I'm very excited because I'm a big fan of the Foltest list that we're going to witness, and overall I'm a big fan of these decks. We do see similar leaders, but at the same time, these leaders can represent completely different archetypes as well. So without further ado, let's take a look at the bands. Let's see what we got here. Ooh, Scoia'tael and Arrakis Queen. Now this makes a lot of sense. KONSIU shutting out Bruverhoog. Now, I mean, we see Scoia'tael in this tournament, Mogwai. Maybe some people might be uncomfortable, but these Scoia'tael decks, they tend to be led up by Commander Shoop in a lot of these situations. In these two situations specifically. So we'll drop you. So the Shoop has so few bad matchups and is very, very dangerous. So I can see that this being a great ban here. PRONEO also banning the consume list. Now we won't see it this match here, but the consume list actually PRONEO would be very familiar with, and he knows that he doesn't have the tools necessary to really take that down. So he feels like his best chances to win here is taking consume out of the matchup. Looking at these matchups, looking at these lists, I would say KONSIU probably has a bit more of a favorable chance here, but PRONEO is so good. I expect the Croc lead here, exactly, from PRONEO as blue, and we see KONSIU leading off with his Ethne. I think, we were talking about this earlier, his Ethne Shoop list is actually really strong because of certain tech choices or bronze card choices that KONSIU has opted to go with, and those include the likes of Lacerate and Mag and Part Ignition, which combined together really put your opponent in a position in which they have to like pick their own poison. But let's talk a little bit about this spicy veteran list that PRONEO is running. And yes, I use the term spicy and veteran in the same sentence because this is not your standard Croc and Crate Skellige Veterans deck, as it is running Sihil in combination with 2-star Archer, as you see right there. The thing is, the Archer does block Croc from pulling out the veteran. But that's not Croc's target. It's Morkvarg, actually. But we do see Roach in PRONEO's opening hand. That's not what you want. You want Roach to come out of the deck when you play gold. You don't even see a gold in PRONEO's hand. Over in the veterans game, usually you're looking to build up. You're using your bronzes to do a lot of the heavy lifting here. The golds to do a little bit more supplement. This is not what you want here, because discarding Morkvarg is not good for Croc at all, because that kills Croc's pull, puts him on an Archer, which becomes a decent res target. You do still get Morkvarg, but losing the carryover on Blue Coin, you don't want that from PRONEO. This is actually the matchup he wanted on Blue Coin. Get Morkvarg out with Croc. It's actually maybe his most favorable matchup against Shoop Ethna, since the control is a lot less effective. So he had to take the veteran, discard Morkvarg, putting Croc on an Archer. I think maybe that res target is not going to be that bad, because having that extra strength on the Archer can make the difference, especially that Archer being able to stagger these 11s that we're going to see later. Very strong against what you could expect out of Ethne, perhaps some Scorches. We see Shiro in the hand right here. This also is a predicament for PRONEO. You saw him highlighting Scal there for a second. Him pulling Morkvarg out of Uldrig was absolutely devastating, not only because that may be his Croc and Crate target to begin with, but because Scal is bricked. Scal no longer, there's no other cursed unit in PRONEO's deck. So that Scal is just a mere 5 strength silver. So this is
This is a horrible opening hand for PRONEO, to say the least here, as he has Roach in hand. He has 2 bricks in hand.
I know, it happened so fast, Mod. What went wrong?
Oh man, this is not how you want to start off in a tournament, but PRONEO has stated how he has struggled with nerves and he has struggled with performance issues in the stage, and that's happened all the way back in the first Gwent Challenger. Everybody was expecting very high things from PRONEO, like
maybe the
most
favorite
people.
to win.
Yeah, it was a favorite to win. Like even I remember talking with Noxious, and he said that he hated being paired up with against them in the quarterfinals, and everybody expected him to just blow everybody away. And then he fell in the quarterfinals, and then he competed again later down the line, and he fell again against Coleman. Last event in which he competed, he did make it to the semifinals, so he is redeeming himself, but he needs to overcome this, slump that he's facing at the very beginning, because this hand is awkward, to say the least. 3
turns of bad luck immediately. The mulligan into Roach, and then ultimately the Udalric taking Morkvarg, and then ultimately bricking Skjall here. So PRONEO, let's talk about how PRONEO is going to maybe take this one with no golds in hand here. He's looking for his bronze to do the heavy lifting. He does have a Bearmaster here, and he's probably looking to find the Spear Maiden to get the Bearmaster in the graveyard, but there's no restore in this case. The veterans are going to be playing on the board mostly for this first round, going to be buffing a lot of units at once. But PRONEO at this point, now getting that card back from Udalric, is looking to just get a good enough lead and probably find a favorable pass here, because his hand isn't going to be cut out for pushing deep.
It certainly isn't, and we're talking about 2 bricks there with Roach and Skjall, but that Reconnaissance is also a card that he cannot utilize, at the very least until he drops 1 Archer, and preferably before he plays Croc if he were to play it in round 1, as he still has 3 Priestesses of Freya in his deck, so that could very easily break as well. So PRONEO has a very limited hand here, and he will definitely not be able to push far into round 1. So he's going to have to try to find the right pass and get the right amount of card quality out of KONSIU here.
Now you may wonder why KONSIU pinged the unit on his own side of the board there with the Dolblethena Archer. It's because he's looking to. There's 2 reasons for that. First of all, he's looking to maintain Scorch. Right now, he's got 22 points on his Shiru Scorch, which is great. The Spy would be blocking that, but on top of that, putting a Bearmaster in the graveyard is not in KONSIU's best interest, because Restore is such a dangerous early game play. If you are able to bring your veteran back into your hand at 8 strength and have it grow with all the veterans, it can reach 10 or 11 points, making it a 21 to 22 point play in a bronze card. So the veterans, again, they're going to do a lot of work here. KONSIU is looking to maintain a fantastic Scorch here, but PRONEO will be able to stagger with the Tuisark Archer if he decides to.
Yeah, and that's definitely a card that KONSIU is not expecting, because you don't expect that card from veterans. So even though he does have a bit of a sense of rush to play that Scorch, he doesn't know that, because he doesn't know that PRONEO is running the Archer. So he's holding on to that Shiru a little bit more. And I'm definitely expecting PRONEO to be playing it soon, and he will ping one of his bears, I believe, expecting, especially because that Dolblethena Archer completely telegraphed that Scorch setup right there. As PRONEO is still playing his veterans, though, he has reverted the coin flip per se by playing the Spies, so he's not being pressured. He knows he's going to have to get out of this round eventually, but he wants to play his quote-unquote carryover, and his carryover here is the veterans.
So I think the Scorch is probably what's going to push PRONEO out of this round. I think that just a bunch of stuff didn't really go his way early on here as we're getting started here on Gwent Open number 6. The Shiro here is probably its good value here. If Croc will stagger at this point, it would boost the Archer that is pulled, which means it would have give Scorch less value. And KONSIU is probably considering this here. Probably the best opportunity to get the best value out of Shiru. Get Scorch in the graveyard to enable that for Ethna for future bear barbecues. And now PRONEO is looking like he is in a desperate spot here. So many points behind, 31 points to even stay in this round on even. Maybe you just take your card and go home here from PRONEO. He's just highlighted the coin. He's thinking about it.
The question is, can you overcome that with the combination of veteran and the Croc into that? It doesn't matter, because PRONEO is not aiming to do that, as he's still going to struggle. Like, the thing is, if KONSIU were to open pass, it does give PRONEO the ability to drop the dead Skjall, as a way to take the second round, right? It's also important to note that while Eglaze tends to be dead in the Skellige matchup, in this case, once PRONEO plays Reconnaissance, it will give Eglaze value. So he has to really hold on to that Recon as late as possible so that KONSIU, doesn't get that extra play with the Aegis here. PRONEO is definitely struggling, especially considering he has a dead scout here. Now, we can't see an open pass from KONSIU because he failed to hit Mark for a second consecutive time, so that one carryover strength will prevent KONSIU from getting his card back.
Which is huge.
It's huge. He needs to pressure him. Like, what PRONEO has to do here, his entire focus this match needs to be to preserve that card over KONSIU. He has struggled a lot in round 1, but he has made the pass that he needed to make because he made sure that Mark was still a thing, and he fixed his hand in a way. He still has one brick there with Scowl, but he does have Dandelion Poet, which can enable him to get some very nice tempo. Unless he draws Roach, there's always that, that threat. But KONSIU leading off with the carryover play with the Hawker support, while it does build up strength for the next round, it is a very low tempo play. And if PRONEO starts making some big plays himself, he can make it impossible for KONSIU here to get that card back, and KONSIU does not have Yavin in hand.
Yeah, I think it's really realistic here. I think that KONSIU is going to be in a really hard spot to actually get his card back here, but he is developing carryover. For KONSIU at this point, he wants to make sure that he has as many big play options for later on in round 3. Hattori, the Elven Swordmaster, and of course Shoop himself. Shoop represents so much flexibility for KONSIU. If he wants to be able to develop, you obviously can't be sure what you're going to get with Shoop. You can have a plan, you can have an idea, but you may not get the choice you need. So if KONSIU wanted to do something very specific with Shoop, he needs to definitely weigh the odds at any given time. There are obviously some great options. Shoop Mage has some devastating options in card draw and charm at the right moment. And since Morkvarg is weakened, he won't really be that chump that blocks the first charm if something comes down early, but PRONEO will definitely play around the charm.
This is good timing for the Elven Swordmaster here, as it does prevent that 2-star veteran from getting the buff from the second one, as it knocks it out before that can even happen. And it also propels KONSIU to 15 points while dropping PRONEO down to 4, getting an 11-point lead over the #1 pro ladder player. As I do believe that the way KONSIU opts to utilize Shoop this game is going to dictate how this match ends, I feel, and I do think there's a very strong argument for perhaps trying to go for the mage option to draw a card, as he has failed to draw that spy, and if he's not able to out-tempo PRONEO and force that extra card out of him, it's not going to be good for him. Like, especially with Ethne getting access to Scorch, you always want to have that last say. So it's definitely very dangerous. As he's hovering over the map on Technician here, I don't think he can actually get that card back. I think at this stage of the game, PRONEO's plays are just too strong individually. And even though he does have a Break Scowl in hand, he's already gotten Roach out of the deck, and he does have enough power to push here. And he's only 4 points ahead. So this is one of the weaknesses of Shoop as a deck itself. It has obviously a very powerful, perhaps the most powerful gold card in the game, but the price you have to pay for that is having 1 copy of each bronze card, right? Which makes it really awkward because it's harder to draw into your silver spy. And in this case, KONSIU really needed that Yavin.
Yeah, and the inconsistency, of course, with not being 100% on what you're getting from Shoop. Also, just a fun thing I'd like to point out here, KONSIU playing the Mohawken Pyrotechnician and hitting all 3 rows. PRONEO is a player actually known for playing, unless he absolutely has to, he'll play all of his units on the same row. So in this matchup, I remember when we were looking at the deck list, I'm like, well, this Pyrotechnician's not going to get any value because it's PRONEO. But of course, you can't line up your 11s, and you don't necessarily know exactly where Roach is going to go. So it's just, I thought that was a fun little piece of trivia.
It's important because, a lot of people may think, well, you have to play around Shiro, not Igni, and that is not true. Like, a lot of, especially gearing for the Great Swords matchup, and because of cards like Brighthead Brigade, a lot of top players in the pro ladder even play Geralt Igni. As PRONEO gets the break out of the hand, this is the turn in which he opts to go for Scowl. He still does have a 5-point lead, so he can perhaps afford to do this. We do see Seho in his hand, and he does have the Archer to line up. In case you guys don't know, Seho is a very unique and interesting gold card that a lot of you probably don't know what the hell it does. So we're going to try to explain to you.
New card, Seho.
Basically, it deals 3 damage. It deals 3 damage to either all odd-numbered enemies or even-numbered enemies. So you have to select one of the 2 options, and what you do is that when the 2-star Archer, you basically line up those numbers.
Here comes Shoop going for the card draw, right?
He's going for the mage.
At this point, you probably want to...
He has to go for the mage. You can't out-tempo him. This is the way to utilize Shoop.
Well, he could consider out-tempoing him if he wants to go for the big boy Shoop, but at that point, that's such a huge commitment.
Risky.
This has got to be utility in the round you don't have to win.
I think this is mage,
we can't actually see what decision...
It is mage, but he does not get it. He goes for the... hazards option instead. I'm pretty sure we could not see the options there, but I'm pretty sure he was fishing for that card draw, but he did not get it. As if you did not know, Shoop provides you with 5 different options after you choose one of the 3 different schools which he goes to.
Yeah.
And by choosing mage, he had 5 different options right there. One of them is to draw a card, but I'm pretty certain he did not manage to get it, so he opted to go for a very aggressive hazard setup. We see Skellige Storm in the melee row, Ragnarok in the range, and Drought in the siege. It is rainy, fiery, and just hot as hell all together.
It's so good. I mean, I say what you want about Shoop and the deck and the fact that it's actually a card that people maybe didn't think would see top-level competitive play. I mean, I was surprised at first when it became Grandmaster caliber, but then players... You know, Brewer saw a step back in the most latest balancing patch, and now Shoop is actually helming Scoia'tael as one of the strongest decks. And we get to see a pretty action-packed match here with every game of Shoop. We're not really sure what we're going to see here, but KONSIU is trying to get a little bit of tempo here. The weather's going to help him a lot here, but he's running out of cards at this point. PRONEO is in a pretty good position here. The Archer Sihil tech is awesome. Croc is a massive play right now, which will be grabbing a 12-point Archer, buffing it as well, and then lining up the board for Sihil. How does KONSIU get the points at this point?
Well, the thing, this weather is taking really aggressively. Like, he is forced to play Croc here.
Yeah.
Like, this is just...
It's going to be Croc Sihil, probably, unless there's a good reconnaissance target here.
This reminds me of Poland, which is, like, extremely cold in the winter and hot as hell in summer. This is, like, you know, this is Warsaw taking over to Gwent here. As
every unit is
raining, it's like everything's going on here, and it's taking a toll on. Like, it's 3 points on the melee row and 2 in the range and 2 in the siege. So that's a total of 7 residual damage every turn, and that goes a long way. That's a very powerful Shoop effect.
But PRONEO is probably pretty happy. He's sitting on, assuming Ethna gets played here, if anything gets played here, it's a 21-point Sihil. It would be 24 should Ethna be played, as it is another odd-numbered unit. It's perfectly lined up for PRONEO to really punish any further advancement here. KONSIU with that weather wants to get that value out of it, and he's going to go and he's going to push a little bit harder.
He played Eglaze.
Holding on to that reconnaissance, so patient. And here we go. Did we see the 21-point Sihil here?
Here comes the surprise. I want to take a look at KONSIU's face. I really want to see his reaction to this, because I would be shocked.
Now, Sihil does have the third option we didn't talk about, and that's actually pulling a unit out of the deck.
A random bronze or silver.
It's a random bronze or
which
silver.
Actually is not bad in Skellige, because in the late game you can just pull a Freya through it.
Of course, yeah, it's definitely not bad. It's a good alternative if you don't think you have a chance to get the value. Like right now, PRONEO is probably seeing more value than he's going to see later, but he doesn't need to play it. And if it's a key to getting another Freya, it could make the difference in the last round here.
I think we're going to see Sihil here.
I think
it's the time to see Sihil. He's going for the recon instead? He's preserving. Oh, well, I mean, he could. Sihil, the thing is, Sihil could be another Freya, too. So I guess he's holding on to it, but is recon enough? I want to see Super Sword,
recon on the 12-point.
No Super Sword. Oh, but he places it in the back to prevent some of the damage from Drought there, because Drought damage is the weakest unit. So by placing the Freya in the siege row, he does prevent 1 damage there. So he does make it out.
It also blocks a potential Scorch on future 11s in that situation there, as he does have the 14-point Archer.
There will be no negotiation.
Down goes Ethne.
This is huge. This is full all-in commitment from KONSIU. You can't let PRONEO have more than a card.
He's going to go for the reconnaissance. Going to pull the Dole Blast and a Bomber. Going to place it on the range row, I believe, which is going to lead a total. That's a lot of damage.
Oh, but that Archer's going to save him. Is the Archer enough to kill the bomb?
The Archer's perfect here. The Archer's absolutely perfect. It denies the Dole Blast and a Bomb here. The Dole Blast and a Bomb. It denies that trap thing that's going to explode. It's going to hit it, ping it for 1, and then potentially like line up, hit the Dole Blast and a Bomber and Eglaze in case he needs to use the sword, the Super Sword, because I'm not sure.
We do want to see the Super Sword come down.
I want to see the Super Sword. But it's not in PRONEO's interest to play Super Sword now, because he wants that extra card here. Okay, so here, that is 12 points. 11, 13. That's a 13-point play initially. 13 points will propel him to 71. That actually... the tricky part... that makes him tie, doesn't it? This archer makes him tie.
And if he plays Sahil instead, he loses the value because the bomb goes off.
Oh, he got him with this.
Yeah, he has to take, he loses 10 points on
Wait, is this enough? Oh, super sword!
He's going for the super sword. He's going to get a good amount of value here. He
wait,
loses
is this
10
enough?
points immediately.
Math!
We got the Skellige Storm ticking. It's going to
by 1 point!
Enough.
By 1 point, super sword! Does it? Oh my god!
Are you not entertained, my friends?
When are you guys? I said, what the hell?
Oh man.
Okay.
I love it. I love this so far. And he gets...
Oh wow, that's a debut for Sahil. This is the new Aguara, ladies and gentlemen.
No, there is actually a pretty heavy risk to not play Sahil in that point as well, because I believe the Heimei Spear Maiden could have been a pull from Sahil, and it may not have actually been a possibility to get anything. So that play right there.
Oh, there's a Yavin.
And there's a Yavin.
That's all she wrote,
this
folks.
This is just going to be it. Hattori is going to get nothing here because the Bear Masters are too big, but Barkley would have gotten even less. Yavin is going to pull something, but he's got to contest to a huge archer here.
Oh, okay, that's over. That's over. Because the archer is forced to ping the 3. Oh man, PRONEO doesn't like this, but he doesn't realize that he has the points. Like, there's no 30-point card. Not even Shoop tends to reach that amount of value.
And how sick would a Scorch be right here? Oh, it just didn't go KONSIU's way.
Yeah.
PRONEO made it work. Even
wow.
Really rough
blue
round
with Roach and a brick scowl, and PRONEO still makes it and takes the first game win. Hashtag Super Sword for the win. That was so epic. Oh my, that's what. I love it. If you want to showcase off that card, that's the way to do it.
Well, I'm sure we're going to see that highlight tomorrow for sure. That's going to be the first thing we see. The one-pointer Sahil in the face of a fully weathered board and an opponent going all in on you to try to get that last card out of you. It was so good. Croc is going to get that victory. A very interesting veterans list with Sahil and Archer.
There will be no negotiation.
We hear Ethna coming in again. KONSIU's going to give it another chance.
She's angry. She doesn't like that. She doesn't like how the sword weathered the storm. Sorry for that. Yeah. As we're going to see a Foltest that, like, we've talked about this Northern Realms list. I'm very excited to see it specifically because it is running not only Selkirk, which tends to be a staple for most Northern Realm decks nowadays, but also Vernon. Vernon Broche is joining the squad as well, giving him an extra copy of Blue Stripes Commando and giving him another resource to control what the opponent is doing, especially when facing engine-focused decks like Great Swords. I'm a very big fan of this Foltest deck, and a lot of top players are as well. I've heard about this sort of list in the top ladder and such, and it's very exciting to see Northern Realms being represented in the Gwent Open when a lot of people weren't expecting this faction to even appear.
Yeah, it's a little bit of elves versus elves must die here. We have the blue stripe, the Temerian package, a little Temerian Foltest. I think it's very good for PRONEO that got his first win with his Croc list, because as you look at this is probably going to be PRONEO's most difficult deck to get a win with, the Foltest Temerian Northern Realms.
Yes.
He's playing it on red coin, which is exactly what he wanted to do, which was basically enabled by getting this win. First of all, also his Nilfgaard list has probably the most favorable matchup. So if PRONEO is able to pull out a win on red coin with Foltest here, he has 3 chances to win with a fantastic Nilfgaard deck in a pretty good spread here. So KONSIU has his work cut out for him. He is able to play the spy and turn things around quickly at this point, but PRONEO is going to get the thinning on, and it's going to be KONSIU's move here. How much is going to let that go down here?
In Conquest, as you said, it does not end until you manage to get a win with every single one of your decks. This is PRONEO's liability, especially considering the matchup, the types of deck he's facing. This is his most vulnerable deck, and this is the most crucial match for PRONEO. He did get that clutch win with Croc, but this is going to be very key. He went for the Swordmaster there to deny a potential Reaver Scout onto the Blue Stripe Scouts to get the chain going, but luckily for PRONEO, he does have more
a little bit more power.
Elf-hating, soldiers right there, as he's able to reinforcements into a second copy. And if this one sticks on the board, he will be able to marching orders into the last one, which is what's going to happen as we see an early Shiru from KONSIU.
KONSIU's going to load that Scorch up for Ethna if there's a potential to play that as well. I love this very lore-friendly matchup here. You have the Temerians versus the Elves, and of course, just like lore, the Elves are led by a giant card keg troll named Shoop. So that's a good thing, at least. And I think that PRONEO has a lot of options here. The marching orders right now on the Reaver Scout gets him his last Blue Stripe Scout, which gets him his third commando as well. What's that, sorry?
He can't afford to. He went for the tower here because he couldn't afford to make that. As you said prior, like if he were to go marching orders into Reaver Scout onto the last Blue Stripe Scouts, he would have eaten one hell of a scorch through Ethne recycling the scorch Shiro went for. So he had to set up that siege tower on the left of the Blue Stripe Scouts there to block that scorch, and then after this we'll most likely see that Reaver Scout go down, unless KONSIU has a way to deal with that Blue Stripe Scouts, but I don't see an answer in his hand.
KONSIU he did have to play, now he's probably happy to remove the Blue Stripe Scout, but you know, there's a lot of value you lose in the Elven Swordmaster with the support as well, but getting that buff on Hattori gives Hattori a lot of really cool options later on, as now he is buffed to 6, so he can resurrect anything at 6, so that's the Dobelthana Bomber, Dwarven Skirmisher if it's not buffed by Barkley, Half-Elf Hunter is also available, and then everything below that as well, Mainstays and Shoop, Panther of course, Elven Mercenary, Dwarven Agitator, etc., etc. So now he has a very, very powerful resurrection here with Hattori, as PRONEO is screaming ahead in points here. At what point is it 2-0? Do you think PRONEO doesn't let go of this round, or do you think that he could actually get a lead here that may consider a pass?
Well, he does have the significant lead right here, 28 points over KONSIU, but he has enabled KONSIU's Eglaze right there, as he has played marching orders. So now KONSIU could Eglaze into a marching orders leading to a Dwarven Agitator, but he opts to pass here.
Yeah, it's getting pretty heavy at that point.
And resetting the round after this. This is very good for PRONEO though, but one of the key things when you're facing Foltest is you don't want to give them an easy Foltest play. Foltest is initially very low tempo unless you have a big board developed. So knowing when to pass and to make their Foltest awkward is very, very key. And I like this pass from KONSIU. I think it was very clever, and it does, you know, even though PRONEO is in the driver's seat right now, he has to find the right timing to play Foltest without falling behind, because he does need to get that card back. He is one card down, and he's not running a Silver Spy. Northern Realms decks, unless they're Henselt, they don't tend to run Talar nowadays.
Now, I think that PRONEO could absolutely consider the open pass here. He's a great hand right now. I think that considering he has Selkirk, Vernon, and Dijkstra, which are all massive plays, he also got full blacklist value on the Temerian Infantry, putting it back in the deck, increasing the quality of his mulligan, and also probably, I think with the 3 battering rams in hand, there's not the odds of Stennis pulling the Temerian Infantry and also bringing out, he's going to go for the full test. He does get a Blue Stripe Commando with full test, so full test is not as low tempo as normally would be. He's going to opt for the pass.
He was thinking about it there. But one of the risky things generally in leading to a very long round against Shoop Squatel is the likes of Shoop spawning Weather, for example, right? But he does have Death Mold in hand, so he is technically safe against that. A big issue, though, that PRONEO is not aware of because he did not see this card in the prior game is that Lacerate. Because he has seen Dobelthana Bomber, but he has not seen that Lacerate, and he's yet to play the Temerian Infantry. Even though he can do his best to try to stagger his units as much as he can and amongst the 3 rows, there are certain things that limit that, and that is the likes of muster units and also the crewmen. He needs to play his machines close to his crewmen if he wants to get the full value out of them. So whether he likes it or not, PRONEO is going to be, you know, pretty much encouraged to stack up a row more than others, and that will leave him very susceptible to that Lacerate and Dobelthana Bomber combo. And if that Lacerate is valuable enough, he could even recycle it with Ethne potentially as well. So this long round, we do see machines for PRONEO, but we see a lot of very powerful tools for KONSIU there as well. It's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out.
Now, KONSIU also did not play his final card. There was no reason to play it. He had already lost the round, so he kept that Artifact Compression secret as well. Now, you can make a safe assumption that Ethne is running Artifact Compression, but it is something he didn't see, so it is still new information. PRONEO could easily put it on, and it doesn't affect him as much, really. There aren't there aren't giant units or dangerous engines for the Artifact Compression to get great value on, specifically. So that's maybe a weaker card where it's otherwise very, very strong in this meta. It really hurts greatswords. It does deny res targets, but we're already in round 3 at this point. Stennis is still in the hand as well, so there isn't, and Shawnee is nowhere to be found as well. Dijkstra could pull her out, but again, this is not an issue because we're in round 3, and the Artifact Compression is only going to get the value of whatever the biggest unit is, potentially a siege tower.
And down goes Foltest here.
Onward!
Attack! Leading on the onslaught against the elves.
Crush those vermin,
Unfortunately, the elves are missing out on their commander. There is no Shoop. Drop you
no
in KONSIU's hand.
No Yavin.
He does have Eglace into marching orders. He does have a Sangram Outlaw, but Shoop is nowhere to be seen, and that is the big powerhouse. But despite, you know, that, there's still a lot of power in KONSIU's hand, predominantly on that last rate. I can't emphasize enough that last rate. It's going to be very, very powerful, I think.
The last rate could be pretty huge, especially if you could double up on it and just get a ton of value, and it's probably going to be very, very late that we see something like that. Barkley's going to be getting a lot of value with the decoy as well. Hattori is going to have probably less value than normal since Barkley isn't going to be a res target, but in any case, both of these units are great decoy targets. Should be getting a lot of value here as KONSIU is just going to go ahead and just start. You know, you get a lot of value out of these bronzes. One of the reasons Squirtle can do Shoop so well is because their bronzes tend to work very well even as one-ofs. One of the reasons why Elven Scout previously, before the change, was so strong is that you're happy to take most of those bronzes that Squirtle has because there's lots of different applications, lots of different tutoring abilities, lots of different ways to just kind of make it work. So being able to put together a bunch of one-ups for bronzes, you generally can find a path to producing enough tempo to getting to the point where you can play Shoop and just blow your opponent out.
It's important to note that I think KONSIU is holding onto that decoy a little bit too much, I believe. I think he could go for it soon because the more he leaves that Barkley there, I mean, obviously, you know, he doesn't know, like PRONEO, he doesn't know that, you know, PRONEO is unaware of the fact that, you know, Hattori is buffed, right? So he doesn't want to technically utilize Hattori for Barkley. But right now, that Barkley could be a target for Battering Ram to deny decoy onto it. And
but then you enable Hattori, it's such a tough choice.
Yeah, it's a tough choice. Like, you have to kind of predict that, you know, Hattori is buffed, and you also kind of, or maybe perhaps think that they don't have it, as that marching orders does pull off the Agitator. But then again, both Elven Mercenary and Agitator are out of the deck, so if he were to have Eglace, he would be able to pull Hattori out anyways through marching orders. So I think not hitting that Barkley Elves is not a bad play, but it would benefit PRONEO here if he were to go for that, as he's hovering over Vernon, Broach, and he targets the Dwarven Mercenary. Interesting.
Vernon's going to get that full value there, buffed up to 7, doing this ping of 7, and also the Blue Stripes, the Blue Stripe Commando that comes with him, kind of prepackaged into the deck. Vernon's just such a great card, just spreading those points around.
I love
giving you so much versatility and removal, and only works with the Temerian package full test, which is not every full test that's out there. You do see a lot of the Temerian infantry. You do sometimes see a thinning play with one Blue Stripe Commando and Temerian, but this is all in. The Battering Rams should be getting a lot of work done. It's going to be a lot of small units to hit here. You see the Agitator, you see the Mercenary, and now you see a 5-point Barkley, which could get double. Well, we'll see what Dijkstra pulls. Double Crewman may not actually be an opportunity for PRONEO, but should be a lot of value out of the Battering Rams as we see Barkley is going to be pulling a second Dwarf here. I believe it is the Pyrotechnician.
Which is going to find full
value. But it also
value.
could be, I think it also could be the, right,
another Mercenary. That is unfortunate. Pyrotechnician here would be insane value. Like, the fact that it can just find home. I love the fact that he's combining, because one of my main gripes with Pyrotechnician is that once the opponent sees it coming, it's very easy to play around, and it can be hard to find good value with it. But when you combine it with the likes of Dull Blast and Armor and Lacerate on top of that, you put your opponent in a kind of a pick your own poison sort of position, right? And it's not good. You know, you either play into the full value of Pyrotechnician, or you line up your rows for that juicy, you know, bomb and swipe value right there, as we're gonna see Eglace go down and pull the reinforcements onto a Panther, just in time.
Just in time, it's true.
Gonna hit the Battering Ram in the back, not wanting to hit the range row, because you don't want to make that row smaller naturally, as you want to have as much value as you can with Lacerate. As down goes the second Battering Ram, feeding on the Half-Elf Hunter and hitting the buffed up Panther on top of that, dropping it down to 3.
You can see the lines forming here with PRONEO. He's just looking for maximum Battering Ram value at any given point. Want to make sure there's a lot of 3s on the board for the double up effect. Stennis is going to be extremely, Stennis is probably going to be pulling a Siege Tower, I believe, but we haven't seen Ronvid. So Ronvid is also potentially a pull for Stennis, as well as Vadermaker. And then, of course, you have your Siege Tower because we do have the rest of those cards, I believe, is Shani that's in the deck right now. So Dijkstra has some pretty good pulls at this point. So yeah, it's Ronvid, Shani, and I believe Siege Tower and Vadermaker. So Dijkstra's going to be pretty good. Stennis is going to be pretty good as well. It's just going to see, I guess, just how much value KONSIU is going to get out of whatever he decides to double up on Ethna, double up on a decoy to get another Barkley, double up on the Lacerate if a row actually presents itself. If there's a Scorch that's worthwhile, probably not, considering the board at this point.
Yeah,
so here comes
ticking.
This could be the decoy right here on Barkley to get that Pyrotech, because that Pyrotech always going to go for the Marching Orders. Which pulls the Pyrotech anyway, my friend.
Exactly.
One way or another, the bombs
and that is a strong swing. KONSIU is one card down, but he is almost double the strength of what PRONEO has. As Stennis does pull Ronvid, he puts it right next to King Foltest as that double crewman pocket is enabled, which will give his battering ram a target, or never mind, because it's artifact compression. It's the best target. Exactly. It's what he was waiting for. And that's a very clear play for KONSIU. He was basically debating about whether to go for Hattori or Ethne right there, because he wants to preserve Double Left Bomber and Lacerate as the last play, and he was holding on to that artifact compression for Ronvid, as you know, Ronvid can't be killed, but if you convert him into a little toy man, then he just doesn't really do much.
A little toy man. Yeah. A little toy man.
Little toy man.
I mean, I think that PRONEO, don't let the score fool you. Dijkstra's going to represent a massive, massive swing at this point. Between Shani, Vadermaker, and Siege Tower, of course you want Shani as part of that package right there. It's just going to be putting a mountain of points on the board. Res targets for Shani, however, are slim, actually. I believe there's it would just be a Siege Tower on the res in this situation, as Stennis is on the board right now.
I was talking about Lacerate being very valuable here, but PRONEO has played right into the Power Technician and he hasn't seen Lacerate, right? But he is trying to avoid Double Blast and a Bomber value, so he is staggering his units across the 3 rows as best as he can, and he's actually, making Lacerate not seem that powerful. Like right now, Double Blast and a Bomber on the back represents an 8-point swing, plus, the body of Double Blast and a Bomber. And he's forced to drop Hattori here, and because he's going to resurrect the Panther, he does free up the range row for PRONEO to stack another card there, and Lacerate will be looking like a 9-point swing at best.
Mogwai, I think these cowards have no honor. Well,
or Edun.
Or Edun. But yeah, Selkirk getting huge value. The full test buff is so huge on Selkirk. Buffing him up to 9 means he can take on all but the mightiest of foes here. As the bomber comes down here, it's going to get minimal value. It's going to be removing 5 from the board in the end of this. And now PRONEO is going to spin a great tune with DJ after he drops Death Mold, likely here at this point. Death Mold probably just looking for a value play, Thunder perhaps on the Mahakam Guard. And then the Lacerate, the Lacerate value is so low at this point. I mean, he's going to get 9 points from it, and then Dijkstra's probably just going to take PRONEO home here, and we could be seeing potentially a 2-0.
He's going to go for the, he's going to go for it first. All right. Or not. All right, here comes the DJ, here folks.
We go.
See me smiling.
He does not get shot.
Serious. He doesn't want to place that tower next to the bomb. Well, it's the same value anyways, but it does empower a potential Lacerate, even though, okay, Lacerate's going to be 12 points. Oh, but he goes for it. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, this is fair. I mean, it makes that is just, it's just a minor difference, but it's just a little bit more.
But that Lacerate on the back row, how much is that?
There you go. What was that? That was
14.
14.
Is this a tie? No, wait, math.
Death Mold's going to get here. Death Mold is 14. The last rate was a little bit stronger than that.
This is a tie!
Oh, we get a tie! The Gwent open! The Gwent open tie!
Oh my god, just because he didn't play with that last rate, he didn't see it. That's the thing. He didn't expect it.
He wouldn't have put the Siege Tower on that row if he thought about it. He thought he had the answer to the bomber and didn't see the last rate last game, and we get a tie. Here we go again, my friend. You like that matchup? So nice. We're going to see it twice here. PRONEO with a little smile on his face, realizing it was in his hands. It was in his hands.
Oh, man.
The Lacerate was worth, yeah, that Lacerate was 13. I think it was 9. Yeah, it was 9 and 4.
It was 13.
13 points there. If the Siege Tower went on any other row, it would have been 12. Unfortunate.
Man. Well, now he has the information. That's the thing. Now he knows that not only does he have to worry about Power Technician and Bomber, he has to keep Last Ray into consideration as well. And KONSIU has Last Ray in his opening hand. This is huge because no matter how much PRONEO tries to avoid it, in round 1, it's when it really escapes his control, as every single Blue Stripe Scouts that he plays will muster out a Blue Stripe Commando. So it's really going to come down a lot to those spawns, those random spawns. Like, if one row gets overly stacked, that Last Ray can represent a lot. And like I said, I love the combination of that alongside the Product Ignition. It just, there's no right way to avoid it. Like, you're going to get hit hard by those cards regardless, right? Like, it's a very nice combination. Last Ray, a card that used to be quite of a staple in Gwent decks back in the day. And
ooh, there's the Shoop he wanted.
Oh, and the Commander is home this time around, while we see PRONEO having a pretty decent hand as well. 2 of his control options, which are not really that relevant in this matchup, as, you know, Shoop decks don't really rely on engines. But he does have Blue Stripe Scouts, reinforcements,
ooh,
and
he dropped the last trade, picked up a Shiro. Not a bad trade right there, especially since PRONEO is going to play completely around it. Obviously, he doesn't have control over every unit that appears on his board. But now this is also very interesting here because PRONEO and KONSIU are now playing again. KONSIU has full information of PRONEO's deck, but that information doesn't change too much because there's not a lot of crazy spice. There's not a lot of stuff that you can, I mean, obviously the stuff that you would look out for in a Temerian full test deck is probably very similar. I mean, these lists right now are getting much more refined. It's cool that we're seeing full test in the open right now, but at this point, you know, it's very similar to how full test is always played. Thin, get big value in the opening rounds. Going to play full test perhaps first. To just stagger this a little bit.
Because I like this because it prevents it prevents the Dual Blast and an Archer from one-shotting the Blue Stripe Scout after it hits the board. So that means that the Blue Stripe Scout has a higher chance of surviving, and thus he can get, you know, 3 of them onto the board, because he does need, like, one of the Blue Stripe Scouts, one of the 2, to stick around to get all 3 of them out this round, as he does rely on that Reaver Scout for the 3rd, no matter what he does. So he's trying to make it so that he can build them up as sturdy as possible before going down. Also build up a row so he plays around Panther. But that's the thing, if you want to play around Panther, you play into Last Ray. Like, it's a mess.
The same thing with the Pyrotechnician. You get horizontal, you get vertical. You have just so many ways of actually squeezing that value out. That's why it's really hard to get a bad matchup with Shoop. You have so many ways of actually finding a lot of value with your cards. Flexible options. And Ethna, as opposed to Broover, while there are a lot of drawbacks by not having Broover, you don't have a reliable pull of your silvers, such as Barkley or Hattori. You do get a lot of flexibility with the Scorch you can load with Shiro, Artifact Compression, Decoy, and we can see that this deck just has so many different ways to win. PRONEO, again, like I said at the beginning of the last matchup before we had a tie, probably PRONEO's most difficult matchup here is not just because it's Shoop Ethna, but also full test probably his weakest deck against KONSIU's lineup, and it was in his grasp, and he's got to go through this again. Hopefully PRONEO's now that he's seen this deck 3 times now, he should be able to navigate this.
I love this decoy. I think this decoy is fantastic. He does, like, not every day you face, if he wins for reinforcement turn 2 instead of dropping another Blue Stripe Scout, either he's baiting him or he is giving him the information that he does not have another Blue Stripe Scout in hand, and he does rely on that Reaver Scout to pull it out. So by decoying this Panther, he does stop the chain, and he prevents the 3rd Blue Stripe Scout from hitting the board round 1, which does make a big difference because that card loses a lot of value later down the line.
KONSIU's going to play this Pyrotech pretty fast, I think, or maybe not that fast, but now he has an option to play it.
14 points, you go for it.
Yeah, you go for it.
You go for it.
Especially
like,
at this point, you're fighting from behind here.
Goalless. That's what he says, right?
Dinna juggleness, something like that. My Scottish accent.
Close
not
enough.
quite up to par. Crokies, forgive me.
Down goes the Siege Tower on the melee row, getting up to 13 points, putting PRONEO 3 points ahead of KONSIU, as KONSIU does have his Scorch enabled now.
PRONEO's really in a tough spot here because, unlike the last game, his Blue Stripe Scout has been that thinning has been denied here.
Yes.
So he's put in a position where Stennis becomes a more and more desirable option, but that could deplete a win condition from your Temerian infantry in a situation where KONSIU just tied a game without even drawing Shoop. It could have been a blowout in a complete other, in a different draw situation here. So PRONEO, and I feel like his body language is kind of showing about this. I wouldn't be surprised if he's still thinking about that last game there.
Hopefully not, but at the same time, you know, that's what surprise factor will do. Like, not many people play last rate, and he definitely didn't expect that after the double blast on a bomber. So we are going to see Shiru go down here. I really like this Shiru play. Shiru against Foltest in the later rounds can become a headache. It can become very difficult to actually find home for that Scorch. So I think it is imperative for a Squirtle Shu player to get that Shiru in on round 1, because otherwise it doesn't really do much against, for example, infantrymen and such. If you play Dwarven Mercenary yourself beforehand, or a skirmisher that gets buffed to 9, like, it's very easy for you to block the Scorch yourself. And you want to get it out of the way. I like this timing for Shiru for KONSIU, as he is 14 points ahead.
Now, I think that Siege Towers play a very important role in blocking Scorch in this full test list, especially when you have Temerians coming out at 7 altogether. And actually, PRONEO is going to have to spend Selkirk here, potentially. It's just, I think at this point, PRONEO is going to try to avoid playing Stennis for as long as possible. But he knows by playing into a long round, he exposes himself to value in Lacerate, he exposes himself to value in the Bomber, especially. But he's already gotten full test out here at this point. He's just playing enough. He's just staying ahead at this point. He wants to say, how deep do you want to go here? How many pieces do you want to deplete? Problem is, Squirtle Shoop has all their bronzes are like specifically designed just to kind of get there. You just want to get there so you can finally close the game out with Shoop. So I feel like playing into this is fine for KONSIU. Here comes the big tempo play, one of them, in Barkley.
I like that target onto Shiru. That's very crucial. There's only one crewman on the board, which means that Battering Ram will feed on a 4-strength unit. So the fact that he targeted that Shiru was not a coincidence. He wants to deny Battering Ram value right there, and that was really well executed by KONSIU, as PRONEO is still managing to stay ahead.
Just keeping that gap close. Just keeping it
getting
nice
that 3-strength advantage over him every turn, not letting KONSIU have his spaz. Because KONSIU definitely doesn't want to resort to the likes of Shoop round 1, right? So it's a bit awkward for him now, even though he does have the commander in hand.
He does have Shoop himself. It's the scariest card.
He doesn't have that much power barring that. Like, PRONEO has done a very good job at always staying ahead every single time, and really abusing the fact that he's going second and not letting KONSIU breathe.
I mean, I think PRONEO's hand's actually pretty well equipped to continue into this round. The Battering Ram has the Reaver Scout has a pull in the Battering Ram. No way to really remove this Battering Ram, so it should be free. Vadermaker is a fair value card. 14 with the full test buff.
Power play here. Power play.
And Stennis is going to make sure that PRONEO just won't lose this round outside of a Shoop.
FNA power play onto the Barclay with a decoy. This is a lot of points, folks. This is a very strong swing.
He may be forced. This may be the Stennis turn here.
Wow,
and it's not even guaranteed to get the Temerian infantry.
He may have to try to high roll it.
He does have Reaver Scout in hand, which is also fine.
Yeah, he has to go for it. He needs this. He needs to stay.
I'm not afraid.
Ooh, Ronvid, unexpected.
But Ronvid is not enough. Ooh. This may be the pass KONSIU wanted. The thing is, you have not seen. Yeah, there it is. Yep, he got his pass.
The wheel it spins.
He has his pass, ladies and gentlemen. PRONEO will have to dry pass after this, I believe, to get that extra card back from KONSIU, and KONSIU will be able to finish off this fight with Shoop, which is a very big deal. Shoop generally tends to represent an average of 23 points. Yeah. And that's going low. Like,
which is
he can reach 25, and that is a lot of points. We do see Yavin as well in his hand, but I don't think Yavin, he doesn't expect his opponent to play Thaler. I was saying before that Northern Realms don't tend to play Silver Spies because they don't really have tutors to pull them out. So
yeah, you have to play Alzur's Double Cross if you want to do it, and yeah, it's tougher. Yeah, the tutor just makes
it's
it
not like
harder to kind of abuse.
Yeah, you know, exactly. Skellige and Nilfgaard have the likes of Rainfarn and Heim. And that really eases out, the 13 strength that you're giving your opponent. And Northern Realms has none of that. So Foltest decks generally do not run Thaler, and I think KONSIU is aware of this.
Sometimes Dandelion Poet can play that role for you, as giving you just a little bit of extra cheating.
Here we go, folks.
For the spy here, but here we go. Just like in the last game, Bride Brigade coming out just to take the round here, and now it's going to be 5 cards on 5 cards. Yavin was not held, not necessary for KONSIU, but PRONEO, again, has a very good hand. He has Shawnee this time, Dijkstra very strong. The Temerian infantry is there. But he needs to get a Blue Stripe Scout. Maybe he plays Dijkstra earlier so he can play the Reaver Scout. Or unless there's only one Scout left. In either case, the Reaver Scout's looking for a Battering Ram or not a Siege Tower. There's only 2 Siege Towers actually in PRONEO's list.
PRONEO has a lot of power in hand, though, and KONSIU does have Shoop and Egg-Lace, but
so reactive, though.
Rest of his hand seems a little bit weak. That Hawker support is a 10-point play at this stage.
Hawker support's 10-point play. Ronvid's already out. I mean, a Siege Tower might catch that artifact compression, but it's not even a sure thing. Shoop is going, it's going to be all about Shoop and a Glace, I guess, on the pull of, I believe, was Marching Orders.
25 points for PRONEO, turn 1, getting that other Blue Stripe Scouts out of the deck. This infantryman in round 3 is just so devastating. KONSIU is far behind. And like I said, he needs to find that really good Dull Blast and a bomber value, but PRONEO is going to do everything he can, especially now that Power Technician has been played. He's going to do everything he can to stagger his units as much as possible across the 3 rows and avoid that Trapper value.
So on a board like this, and as we can see how this board might develop, the options for Shoop become probably more damage-based for value, or perhaps value-based on the Knight side, the 12 strength side. There's no reason to risk not getting what you need from the Hunter side. I think if you're just looking for value, I believe we're probably going to see the Knight this time around. But of course, it's going to be up to KONSIU. It's going to be up to kind of where he sees the best opportunity to get that average 23 plus value from this card, which is seeing its first major tournament appearance here at Gwent Open number 6.
We could see the Hunter, because I think the Hunter may be a safer option, as it can deal 2 damage 8 times in a row, and it can also pull a Bronze or Silver unit from his deck, and he could pull Hattori to resurrect Barclay Elves.
That is very good,
so
actually.
That is a very powerful swing. I think we may see KONSIU going for Hunter here with Shoop. I think it makes the most sense, but I may be wrong.
Shawnee is down here, so the option here is to maybe bring back Stennis to get the other Siege Tower or the last Blue Stripe Scout, if you care to even have that. Death Mold is just a value play here. The Battering Ram enables the Reaver Scout immediately. That may be PRONEO's pick.
Yeah, I think you have to go for that. You don't want a dead Reaver Scout. You're really risking it. You have to go for the Ram.
The Siege Tower is not Reaver Scoutable. Again, there's only 2.
The question is, will KONSIU realize? Like, he has to look at his graveyard. He has to be like, why would he go for this?
Oh, man, if he compresses this.
If he compresses this, that would nullify the Reaver Scout. That would be really big for him. It's a very weak play. It's a 4-strength play, but it's not like Artifact Compression is going to get much more value than that, because Ronvid has already, been played earlier, right?
Siege Tower, I guess.
This is the Artifact Compression he needs.
Dijkstra still gives options. I mean, once again, PRONEO thinned very well, 4 cards left, so getting that Siege Tower on the board is highly likely, as it is still in the deck.
But he's already played another one. He only runs 2 in his deck.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did the second Siege Tower come down?
The first one was played in round 1 and was scorched by Shiru, so he only has 1 left in his deck, I believe.
Yeah, so Dijkstra can pull it out of the deck.
But I mean, the Reaver Scout, if this gets answered, though, he's not going to go for it, though.
Oh, true. The Reaver Scout, yeah. Exactly.
He wants to Artifact Compression the Siege Tower. Yeah, and he doesn't stop it. And Reaver Scout does find value. And he does capitalize on the Hawker support right there. He could have prevented this, but he didn't. I mean, he didn't know his opponent's hand either, right? But that would have been huge for KONSIU there. As PRONEO does stay 14 points ahead. It is Vettermaker and Dijkstra versus, small Toy Man and Shoop himself. I expect Hunter to go down here.
It could be Hunter. It could be Hunter. It could be. Yeah, I think that is probably you need the biggest play here.
Yeah, so, it's Hunter.
Good call, Mogwai.
He's going for Hattori.
Does he see what he needs to see?
Yep, he goes for Hattori.
Ooh, so clutch.
He does get it. This is a monstrous swing. This is really powerful.
But let's not discount the fact that KONSIU is holding on to Artifact Compression. PRONEO has 2 plays left. One of them is Dijkstra. So KONSIU needed this. But I think 14 is just not going to be enough.
Yeah, unless that Dijkstra is weak as hell, which I just don't see it happening, this Vettermaker is enough to actually even up the score, and it is Little Toy Man versus the DJ. I'm one to root for the underdog, but Little Toy Man is just... rip Little Toy Man. Yeah, that's the one he should have done. I think he missed out on that Artifact Compression play earlier.
And he's all ears. There's the other Battering Ram.
Serious.
And here comes the Siege Tower. PRONEO gets the win he desperately needs after letting it slip out of his fingers in a tie last game.
Defeating Shoop.
Defeating Shoop with Shoop in hand and available. A very different outcome of that game. But it's still, man, that was fantastic. PRONEO taking it with full test. 2 crowns for the Pro Ladder King, and now he's got John Calvert, a very, very strong Soldiers deck that is very favored against everything the KONSIU can put out here. PRONEO's got 3 tries in a great matchup. KONSIU, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a very steep climb. It's going to be the most impressive reverse sweep of your life. But if you want to get there, that's what you have to do.
You have to take down Nilfgaard Soldiers, not 1, not 2, but 3 times. As I stated at the beginning of the matchup here, even though they do have similar leaders in John Calvert and Kraken Crate, their archetypes are actually very different. While we haven't seen KONSIU's Nilfgaard yet, but he is playing Alchemy Nilfgaard. PRONEO is playing Soldiers. Soldiers is an archetype that became popular throughout this new metagame, which actually happens to match up well against Alchemy Nilfgaard. It is a very proactive deck that distributes its strength across multiple units on the board.
Nice.
Strategy revolves around slave infantries and sentries, or as I like to call it, fence. Fence comes in.
Drop that fence. I mean, it's really interesting. I thought that Sentry Slave Infantry, the power level didn't really change, but the meta changed, really. And I think that Sentry and Slave Infantry was always just on the edge of being a very, very powerful deck. Lots of different variations. Sometimes you run Recruit, sometimes you run a Scorch package to kind of, because you play low to the ground and you play lots of units at the same time. PRONEO's list is probably more standard these days. It's been very refined, but he's got a couple of really cool picks. I don't think we can see, I mean, the single Vikovara Medic is very interesting, probably to aid in the Greatsword matchup. But the Igni is very good. The open pass here, very strong, maybe giving away that he's not running Alchemy right away, because that's not something you maybe want to do with Alchemy. But you want a long round for Igni. Rainfarn is going to be able to get a lot of work done as well, which is not always an inclusion in Soldiers.
You know what card I see KONSIU holding that will absolutely decimate slave infantries and armies and everything? It's at the far left, and you know, it rhymes with the number 3. It doesn't really rhyme, but it's 3 fingers, and it's gonna swipe those slave infantries clean. That lacerate is gonna be devastating, as it will be able to clear an entire row and really limit the power of fence right there, aka sentry. As we see Rainfarn being able to pull out Joaquim, and he still does not have a single slave infantry, even though the recruit right there, or as I like to call Potato Guy, can pull out a slave infantry out of the deck, and it's very likely to do so. It has like a 75% chance to pull the slave infantry, though it could always happen that he could pull that last sentry from the deck, as recruit has the ability of, as you can see, and I like this. You just cycle away an ointment because you won't need him.
That choice, or yeah, I guess you don't really need it. Just get it out of your deck because you're not rezzing any.
He also wanted to potentially get Mardrim to buff him,
And it doesn't even give away the information that it's Soldiers yet, because Vikovara Novice and Ointment very common in Alchemy as well. I can tell, Mogwai, that you've been waiting to cast a Nilfgaard.
Yes.
You've got all your nicknames ready. You're just delirious. You think lacerate rhymes with the word 3.
I can't help myself. I like it.
It's great. And there's Vreemed. I love the Vreems in this deck. Another great target for Decoy. Decoy is just so strong in Nilfgaard generally. It's one of the shining redeeming points of Nilfgaard for me is because I love Decoy as a card, and I love Decoy in Nilfgaard.
Now, pay attention to, you see how he kept that Cantrella in hand. That's not a coincidence. The reason he's doing that is to block KONSIU's Scorch. He wants to be able to play Cantrella and thus nullify Shiru, but he also needs to be very careful to not give him a very powerful Epidemic. How do you solve that? Well, you play Potato Guy right there. The guy peeling potatoes in PRONEO's hand. He is 1 strength and will block Shiru's Epidemic, and also, like, he's aiming to play Slave Infantry first because he wants to follow it up with Recruit, so that even if he gets unlucky and does pull the 3rd sentry out of the deck instead of another slave infantry, he still gets some value. But look at this Pyrotechnician.
That's pretty good target for Pyrotechnician.
Yes, that's pretty good. I agree.
Might Ointment this one right back, though.
Maximum value, denying the setup. I think that's
hits
a dream.
the Ointment, and it's not a sure thing with Triss. I think in this matchup because of the lacerate. I think it.
Yeah, it's not a sure thing because we have Reconnaissance, Ointment, Mardrim, and Lacerate out of the potential cards you can pull. So. Definitely fortunate for PRONEO to be able to get that Ointment, especially considering he was forced to drop one of the 2 through the Vikovara Novice as he was fishing for the Mardrim. And he does play Triss Telekinesis to get that Slave Infantry back onto the board. We could see a decoy from KONSIU. Like, we could see him go for that. You can make an argument for that.
It's possible. I mean, It's very interesting because...
I would go for it.
It's interesting because Vreemd gives you options to get more slave infantry, more sentries, and of course a whole bunch of other cards like Alba Heavy Cavalry, Standard Bearers, and a number of just generally good high-value targets. And with the decoy on Vreemd, even if KONSIU is playing to prevent the strategy from developing, if PRONEO gets the creates he needs, Vreemd until later because the sentry is the highest value potential target, pull for Vreemd. But if he needs the slave infantry to get extra value out of the sentries he does have, we may see Vreemd a little bit earlier. When do you think he's going to be dropping that Vreemd?
It's interesting to say because there's a lot of plays that need to happen more or less at the same time. Like, my question is, are you just going to go for the full swing with Van Hemar? Because you may want to preserve Van Hemar for a potential Shoop spawning triple weather. Weather is the biggest enemy of Nilfgaard soldiers. So holding on to Van Hemar for later on in the match may be the correct play, but it also does kind of, you know, affect your sequencing a little bit because you do want to preserve your sentries for later plays. But he does drop a sentry early on. This is normally not what you do, but he wants to avoid a decoy onto Power Technician, clearing his board. Again, he's willing to sacrifice, you know, one of the, a lot of like potential like maximum value of that sentry or fence, and just play it early on so he can avoid the either lacerate or Power Technician from, you know, denying the setup as a whole.
How do you say no to decoying Barkley, though? It's just so tantalizing. You get so many points from that. Decoy into Barkley or decoy into Hattori. I mean, this is a great showcase for that card. Decoy plays so well in both of these decks at this point. But I think KONSIU probably is going to let this go a little bit. What's that?
He may create into Millen. He may try to get Millen here. He did go for Millen. He wanted to go for Millen.
But he'll take the weather here, I think. Weather not just against soldiers, but most all Nilfgaard decks actually struggle with weather. Alchemy and soldiers both play on all 3 rows. Now, Vanamar is there. This was a created Ida. We know Ida's not in this list, so this will be a clear, and this clear will stick around. Yeah, that's just so much long round value right there that PRONEO is able to recoup on what was a very, very weak gold card. So if you're looking at the value game right here, PRONEO just got back 13 plus points. And KONSIU played a 6-point gold. But here comes the decoy.
He really wants that fog.
Now, there's a decoy, of course, in PRONEO's hand as well if he thinks the value is going to be there.
But he would enable Aglaze to decoy it back.
Oh, man, it's so true. Decoy wars, potentially.
And the Ethne player will win, believe me. Not only Aglaze, but obviously Ethne as well, being able to recycle a special card from his graveyard as the second slave infantry enters the board. And the setup continues. He is holding on to that recruit.
Now, if you're not familiar with Vreemd specifically, because this isn't a card you see too often, I think it's a pretty cool card in soldiers. But the weather clear for Nilfgaard is actually an officer. So the creation of a weather clear bronze, something that a lot of people were not very fond of in the last patch. There, just being able to source the answer, Vreemd actually cannot pull that weather clear bronze.
That got changed, right?
No, just because it's an officer and Vreemd only pulls the soldiers is what I meant to be clear about.
The Naziga Bear? The standard bear?
The
Naziga Bear.
I believe it is an officer. I don't believe
Vreemd. It's a soldier.
Oh, well.
I'm pretty sure the Naziga Bear is a soldier.
Well, in this case, it is not. Oh, this is. Well, the recruit's good.
Oh, the recruit's great.
There's a fence.
I mean, it would be better to spawn another copy of that, right?
I mean, that's the sentry. The sentry. So any way you can get a sentry is exactly what you want.
Yeah.
We're double checking that officer thing. I think at this point, KONSIU is. I mean, he's happy to have the weather ticking at this point. He's happy to have a great target for lacerate. He's happy to have great target for Dobelthen, a bomber. And there's just so much value out of those cards right there, and that's not even counting the extreme value that you can get from Aglace in general, Barkley. Shiro maybe not as much. Shiro may just take what he can get at this point. In fact, Shiro might be the hardest one to play, Mogwai.
Yeah, Shiro may be very difficult to play here, especially considering, I mean, right now it is enabled, but we may see KONSIU holding up to it a little bit more. But he has to be careful, because if he pulls a Macam guard, for example, it could really work against him.
Could have been the thing here. Looks like he's probably going to be the skirmisher.
It is an officer. You're right. It is an officer. The Nausicaa Sergeant is an officer.
Somehow, my Nilfgaard knowledge in this moment, I'm going to take this. This is going to be a victory for me. I
failed, Emir-sama. I'm a disgrace.
Got that one. I think I must have tried it a couple times. Anyway, moving on.
We do see a decoy target
at this point.
Right there onto the sentry that's been damaged, and that's going to be a lot of points. But then again, that lacerate value is just ridiculous.
God, the lacerate in the bomber is just going to be devastating.
The bomber can be answered if PRONEO manages to fish for Vilgefortz through John Calvate, which could happen. He has 7 cards in his deck, so there is a pretty good chance that one of those 3 on the top is Vilgefortz, and Vilgefortz can burn or sacrifice the trap, and thus completely counter the double blast and a bomber right there.
And he can still thin so much with Rainfarm, with Cantarella, with the decoy potentially, he can get it pretty right on to what he needs.
He needs to find the right moment to play Cantrell, though, to start blocking that Scorch.
Yeah, because Shiro, especially if the Cantarella just ends up being the target for the Scorch there, it's going to make Shiro another low-value goad for KONSIU, and I don't even know if he can afford it at this point. Although he did ultimately get a lot of value out of this weather. Here comes a decoy on a sentry, one of your better targets here. Huge amount of value right there. 14 points on the buffs alone, 25 all day. And PRONEO with what is going to be premium John Calvate, as there is Triss and Triss and Vilgefortz are 2 of the 7 cards that are left in the deck. Joachim, of course, is going to be pulled from Rainfarm. There will be a draw from Cantarella eventually. PRONEO probably just looking for the best possible time to set up Cantarella for maybe a good potential Igni. Maybe he wants to see some more. He wants to see buffs from the Mahakam Guard go down. It's possible, but just making sure that 13 is probably the best target he's going to get. But blocking the Scorch is also very, very important. So if you can get a lineup of 2 9s or maybe a group of 7s, that could be everything you need. You block the Scorch and you get Igni value.
For a long time, and we do see
the Igni's going to cover him though.
Yeah, and now he has to. Even though Scorch doesn't really achieve as much here, he's hovering over that Cantrella now. He sets it up in the back row. I like him setting up in the back row because he does keep the Igni dream alive by doing this. And we do see him go for the recruit. Though, if I'm not mistaken, he's ran through all of his
1, 2, 3 sentries.
Yeah, in 3 slave infantries. That recruit right now is bricked. But if he does pull a Zyre out of his deck, he could return 1 sentry in his graveyard and recycle it right there.
I mean, that's got to be the only reason why. I mean, the Mardrum value is fairly low in this matchup, so just the chance of that occurring, and again, very thin deck, only 6 cards remain here, and Calvert's going to look at 3 of them. I mean, Vilgefortz is also extremely good, and Vilgefortz also could end up pulling Asira because you get to see everything in order at that point. So at this point, playing Calvert late is so good with Nilfgaard. Not every, I know there's a lot of lists that run Ka here. Alchemy sees Calvert played earlier generally, but playing it late with the soldiers, just make sure you have 3 premium draws if you've thinned right and you haven't drawn the golds already.
It's also it's very key that he played Cantrella before doing this because he did get to send Mardrum to the very bottom of his deck. So now the odds of him having either Vilgefortz or Azire at the top 3 cards of his deck is very high. It's actually very, very high.
PRONEO dropping another 20-point bronze on the board potentially to keep this lead secure.
Yeah, but no such thing as secure when you're facing an Ethnic deck with Lacerate and Bomber. That Lacerate specifically, especially the fact that he can recycle it with Ethne, is extremely threatening. Also the fact that Decoy onto Aegles has been enabled as well. It just makes things really awkward here.
This is actually really scary for the Igni here. You can't take the Igni too early because now Scorch is activated for Ethne on the 11. So this is going to be, with KONSIU having the last say.
No, PRONEO has the last say.
Yes, that is true. I take that back. That ends my thought. But the Bomber here, so this may be the Calvert we're going to see if the Bomber's going to come down here. 6 units is pretty good. Since all the Slave Infantry have been played, you can make the call that you're not going to see any more units on the most stacked row.
Here goes Calvert.
This is massive.
This is Calvert. It's Calvert time.
Calvert for the
I should not repeat Emir's mistakes. He's going to go for that Vilgefortz. He needs Vilgefortz. Vilgefortz would be huge here. He's also trying to play around Lacerate as well, but then again, he does avoid fog value there. He does not get the Vilgefortz though.
The Asira is going to enable the recruit, so there's at least that if he chooses to go with that. But
he has to go for it.
That bomb on at the bottom row, I believe it is 13 points will be removed from PRONEO's board right now as he plays the 16. Plus 3 points on this play right here.
He could return that and the Vic of Our Novice potentially, because he does still want another, or he could deny his Ethne as well. Yeah, he may be attempting to utilize Ethne this way.
That gets more value out of Igni. He played it earlier, I suppose.
This is intense. He's yet to play a Vic of Our Medic, so he still has a target for Joaquin.
He tucked the decoy back in, so no Ethne decoy. Ethne Scorch isn't going to work. The bomb has now dislodged what would be, well, the 11s still exist, though, as a threat for PRONEO. Should Cantarella get pinged at all from a Dobelthana Archer.
Oh, and he goes for it again.
There's the decoy.
Oh, this is so much value, though.
What the werecat dragged in.
Oh, ugh.
This is powerful.
So many points. The Dobelthana bomber, I've never seen a higher value bomber than this one that's gotten decoyed here.
Oh, he still has Ethne and Lacerate left. This is really tough for PRONEO here.
And we know that Rainfarn is pulling. Actually, do we not know? We actually don't know what Rainfarn is pulling because Asir was the only unit that Calvich or Joaquin is pulling.
It's pulling the Guevara Medic.
It's pulling the Medic.
I believe his deck has Mardrim, Vilgefortz, Ointment, Vic of Our Medic, and what's the last card he has?
Lacerate. I mean, the amount of horizontal value here that KONSIU has gotten in this matchup is really something, and it's still. It's fairly close. The weather has stopped at this point. PRONEO still has 2 plays left. Ethna is blocked on Scorch at this point as well. No Shoop. Also very, very important to note. No Shoop.
He has to find a Scorch. Oh, the thing is, if he does Igni the Cantrell, he doesn't enable Scorch, but that makes his Ethne a 16-point play. It comes down to this. It comes down to how strong Ethne is versus PRONEO's Rainfarn into Joaquin. Rainfarn into Joaquin is a very strong finisher.
There will be no negotiation.
No more residual damage. Another Lacerate on the back row, dropping PRONEO to 58. He needs a 36-point Joaquin.
I don't know if that's possible.
Unless I did bad at math. Wait, no. Is this possible? No.
Oh, is it possible?
Oh, he misses out, and KONSIU gets the win finally with his Ethne list. He does not go down 0-3. The dream is still alive. The low seed does manage to get a win against the #1 player on the pro ladder, and he very, very well executed by KONSIU right there. That long round actually happened to benefit him slightly because of his bronze options there.
Slightly? Oh,
with
man.
The Lacerate,
so much
the
value
Lacerate,
from that round.
The Pyrotechnician as well. That was really good for him. That really made that particular Squaitail deck shine. I really like his bronze selections there, like combining Pyrotechnician with Lacerate and Dobelthana Bomber. And also PRONEO not being able to get that Vilgefortz. That was really like what dictated the match. But on top of that, it would have been risky because if Joaquin was on top of his deck, he would have bricked his Rainfarn too. So
it was all over the place.
You can't really say he got unlucky. Like it was pretty even out there, and KONSIU managed to get a win.
Yeah, taking a long round, getting weathered, getting the Lacerate, the double bomber. It was just so many points, and it was still so close. But no Shoop, once again. You can say it's still so close, but no Shoop. It was probably the easiest matchup for Soldier Nilfgaard that KONSIU still has, so it's an uphill climb from here. Great Swords is, again, one of the strongest meta decks, so very strong. But then, of course, Igni, Vilgefortz, Vikovara Medic, and Mardrome all threaten KONSIU's game plan from PRONEO's side here, and he does have Vilgefortz. And if it's necessary, you can get the offensive Vilgefortz, but it may not even be necessary because the Igni can usually take care of it. The Martyr can get huge value on the boats that we'll see later, and KONSIU also having to go first in this matchup. It's going to be an interesting one because Great Swords, even with all of that said, is a very strong deck.
Well, it is a very strong deck. Great Swords is not really able to drive past most of the time. Great Swords is an engine-focused deck that relies on building up said engines and building up the Great Swords for very powerful resurrections in round 3. This makes this matchup very fascinating, as PRONEO does have significant techs against this archetype right here. And like you said, not only the Vic of Aromatic, not only Azire, but also the likes of Geralt, Igni on top of that, and Vilgefortz to counter the Herald Houndsnout by being able to burn, was it Wilfred or Wilhelm?
Yes.
One of the wills.
Yeah.
He burns one of the wills, and he denies the spawning of the bear. So PRONEO has a lot of tools. This is a very, very key matchup, especially if you're trying to ladder in ranked or in pro ladder. This is a very classic matchup that you'll be, running into if you're playing with these two decks, as these two decks are very, very popular on the ladder. And it's a matchup that I played a lot myself. It comes down to you want to lose round. This is what I was about to say. You want to lose round one.
Exactly. You
want to lose round one against Croc and Crate. You want to have first say round 3, because if you have first say round 3, if you're able to play the card first, that means you drop your Vic of Aromatic or your Azire before your opponent can interact with their graveyard. And thus, if they spend the entire round building up a greatsword, then you get to steal that all for yourself, and thus just completely blow them out. What does KONSIU have to do here to avoid that from happening? He needs to hold on to that coral, and he also needs to spread out the gains, them gains, them weight gains. He needs to distribute them. He can't get selfish. He can't let one of those cool story bro swords get buffed all by himself. So you need to call his buddies and let them all share the weights, because otherwise that Vic of Aromatic will steal all the value gain. So he needs to disperse the gains, and he needs to preserve coral to be able to counter a potential counter res. And barring that, he just needs to find the right pace for this round. Like, he needs to push deep, he needs to get that card back, but he also needs to make it so that he isn't completely countered. Like, he wants to push as far as he can. He may even try to 2-0, because you want to get that Vic of Aromatic out of them, regardless of how you approach this round. You want that Vic of Aromatic out.
Yeah, the Vic of Aromatic is like that little tech that makes this matchup even better than it already can be.
Yeah.
I think KONSIU, and just addressing what happened in the first round, though, PRONEO did the early spy on the red coin, basically forced KONSIU in a really rough position. Do you play a card, or do you continue the round and go down 2 cards? PRONEO took the quick pass, feeling like having the extra card is better than having control of the round, not just extra card, extra 2 cards. Also, KONSIU would be forced to be playing Udalryk, I guess, with Skjal to stabilize the card advantage, but in that giving PRONEO the points to probably never ever get that card back. So in addition to that, KONSIU does hold Igni. That gives him a little bit more flexibility with his spy play. He does have the combo of Gengifret and Herald Houndsnout, which is devastating. Also frees up his Croc for some other plays with Greatsword or Ship, depending on how things get thinned out here. But, I mean, this is going to be a really interesting matchup. The Coral is really going to be huge, I think. The Igni is also going to probably play as well, depending on how big these units get. Both players have Igni. I mean, both players are very well equipped to take this on here, but I think KONSIU is a little bit at a disadvantage here, being down a card and being on the blue coin.
We want to see KONSIU dispersing the greatsword gains right there, making sure that the growth is distributed and he just isn't focused on one.
The 26.
But Recruit goes on to the Sentry after he plays out all of his slave infantries, and that is a 27-point swing with the Recruit 1 point added onto it. That is massive. That propels PRONEO to 54 points, being 2 cards over his opponent. This is very, very, very harsh for KONSIU, and he needs to find a way out of this. KONSIU just needs to keep pushing, but the thing is,
the extra sentry.
Oh my God, we live and die for the Emperor. Brendy just becoming an MVP right there and getting, how many points is that? That's 30.
Yeah.
We just saw a 30-point Brendy.
Not too bad. That's a great Igni, though.
That's a strong Igni.
You'll take it right back with a 26-point Igni. I mean, we're seeing, we saw some low-value stuff in some of these other games. We're seeing some high-value gold, like low-value golds, that is. Just a high-value bronzes in the last game, but some high-value golds in this one as well. Here comes Triss, looking for, he's going to take that reconnaissance. Triss very versatile in this as well. Double Marjoram in the matchups that matter. Ointments, of course, grab your units late round, and of course, reinforcement gets your thinning out. And another Sentry is going to drop a little bit less, though. Just a little bit less, but not a lot less. He still gets so much value from that 20-point Sentry.
That was another 26-point play right there.
Yeah.
26-point Triss telekinesis. This soldier deck does have a slow start because the slave infantry plays are 9 points inherently, and you know it can be a little bit difficult to distribute that value throughout 2 different rounds. Like that's one of the weaknesses of soldiers, right? You have to like know exactly how far to invest. Like a sire is like very key for this deck because it does give you the ability to recycle your ointments, and it does give you the ability to just do all this. Oh man, and
it's another 20 points there. Yeah. No, just another 20 points.
But he's dropping all of his plays here. Like
it's true. I mean, using all the sentries, but Assyria is going to get those sentries back in the deck later on. There's the easy villager sports on the skull. PRONEO just waiting for that coin to flip over. Going to deny a huge amount of value here. Basically, KONSIU's never getting these cards back at this point.
It's just not
decoy.
Happening.
Maybe get another sentry with Vreemed. Why not?
Oh, do you dream big? You dream big. Or you
some
decks decoy a sentry,
dream bigger than others.
you kind of
you see the Igni, you feel pretty safe. I don't know.
I think.
Or you can decoy the sentry, but Vreemed is a bit more spicy. But PRONEO's here to win.
PRONEO plays to win. PRONEO does not fear. The king does not.
You get another slave infantry. That's something. I mean, but it's not even probably the best choice. Well, is it? It is.
It actually is the most points.
It is actually the best choice here.
I like it. I like it. PRONEO playing to win, not playing not to lose. He may actually play the Infer Enforcers. He's yet to play the Spy, right? But he just opts to go for the Sentry. I mean, that also gives him another, you know.
He played the Spire in the very beginning of the game.
Yeah, no, he does have Hakim still, though.
He does indeed.
And here comes Ulderic.
Yeah, because PRONEO now, if PRONEO could have gone to decoy the Sentry there just for like more guaranteed points because he knows that that Genja's coming, and Genja brings a lot of points with him, even if you do deny the skull. But at this point, I mean, like look at the value that Igni can get right here. You got a 23-point chip. There's a Martyrdom still in the deck for Calva to find. I mean, those are the big ones right there. And then the Vico Varometic is comfortably going to be able to be held by PRONEO as soon as he gets the value that he's ultimately going to get from Geralt Igni to take this round in the most dire situations.
I agree with this Igni. I think this Igni is great, and it happens to be a really solid play from PRONEO. PRONEO is just not going to allow KONSIU to get that card advantage back. And he's going to force, like, the fact that he's going to have first say, and he's going to be able to play the likes of Vico Varometic is huge for him. As he does manage to knock out one of the skulls, but that's actually like not the best thing. But he still does have a 26-point lead?
He lost a bit of value on the Greatswords there with the Shrike on top of that, but it is a lower commitment card to play. At this point, PRONEO has a comfortable lead, so he can just kind of play the lower card, like the cards that aren't going to get the best amount of value. Asira, though, it's tough because he really wants to play Asira into the sentries, so he can play the
or he wants to play Azire to deny the captain on the restore. That's also a very viable play right there. What gets strengthened? What are the ships? That's actually really important. Doesn't quite line up the Igni, the crazy Igni in that row, but Igni has to go down this time. Like it has to be Igni.
It's just too good. And I think
it's also like it's actually like the least valuable card in its hand at this stage because Igni is strong here, but in a short round 3, it won't really find that target. Even though we do see a 20-point greatsword in front, that's gonna be Vico Varometic food. But he is preserving Coral, and he goes for the restore. He really wants that card out of PRONEO to be able to have last say.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that beats you here. Is this Calvet then, or it could be Asira? Well, Asira is enough. Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing for the Vico to even take. This is the risk that you take when you pass on Greatswords and going into a long round. But honestly, PRONEO's gotten so much value. He's going to put Cantarell back in the deck. Not my favorite play in the game, that's for sure. I've been pretty vocal about that. The fact that spies can go back into the deck.
And decoy. I love him putting back decoy. He wants to decoy the Vico Varometic. And KONSIU's going all in. He's gonna drop the Coral. He really needs that extra card. He wants to 2-0 him.
We're going to see what the draw is.
And he gets the decoy.
Decoy on top of the deck. Recruit is the draw, which is going to be the draw. And
this decoy is perfect, though.
The decoy is,
it's exactly what it needs. Otherwise, he would get 2-0. Like, that's very scary because that Vico Varometic is a dead card right now. KONSIU really go for the 2-0, but he does not get it. PRONEO does get a clutch 6-point lead.
Man. That Asira
actually
was so
3-point lead. That is nuts. KONSIU does not get the 2-0, and that Vico Varometic is gonna seal the deal, especially with Roach. Roach. Coral.
Coral.
Out of the way.
Coral was so important there.
Roach.
The recruit on the draw here. The recruit doesn't have a pull, going to mulligan right into the next card in the deck, which is Joachim. Joachim's going to get it. Oh, the 22 point
is his favorite card. Remember, his favorite card right here is going to seal the deal for PRONEO, it seems.
The tech heard around the world here. PRONEO match point at this point. KONSIU has a chance with Heim to get. Oh, he's going to maybe take Joachim, which would get him a Freya potentially into a greatsword. That's a lot of points. There is still. Oh man, there's a lot of points still in the graveyard for that Freya.
But
it's not going to be enough.
Too much.
PRONEO going to get a recruit which doesn't even have a pull, but it's still just enough
points.
Oh, this series had everything. It had huge scorches, huge lacerates, giant bronze value, a tie game,
victories,
1 point still victory rounds. Like, what do you want? What else do you want to get things started here? What an awesome set. Right there, 5 games, but only 4 games actually recorded as Full Test did tie against Ethna. KONSIU took 3 goes with Ethna to get that 1 win that he got, so he is going to go home with an extra 250 USD, but PRONEO now 1750 in the bank USD, and he's going to get ready to shake hands and GG. What a set though, Mogwai. Absolutely fantastic play.
PRONEO does take the victory, and he does defend his title as the #1 current player, the highest rank in the pro ladder ever achieved, as he is able to take out,